He is getting worse. We can all see it. It's happening in public. But it's still a very hard, very sensitive story to cover. When you watch a broadcast nightly newscast, how often do you hear about just how far off the road Trump is? Not often enough. So something's wrong. There are lots of theories about what it is. There are some doctors who think they know. There are others who say we shouldn't speculate. There are ethical questions about even having this conversation at all. But we can't tiptoe around it anymore. We've got to talk about this. Don't be fooled by the partisans who cherry-pick the worst mistakes of individual journalists or the craziest ideas from commentators and claim that's the entire media. It's not. You're going to hear this from the right for the next days and weeks to come. The press basically made all this up to take down President Trump. But the press is just following a trail that Trump created. He has proven time and time again that he cannot be trusted. And if the president was watching Fox and Friends this morning, he saw this banner. It says, Trump cuts U.S. aid to 3 Mexican countries. The reference, of course, was to Central American countries. The network apologized several hours later, said the banner should have never appeared. Obviously, that's the case. But I don't know what's going on over there. President Trump right now celebrating Robert Mueller's no collusion conclusion. He's celebrating by condemning the press. He's repeating a Fox News talking point. You can see it right here. It says the New York Times, the Washington Post's Pulitzer Prizes for Russia coverage should be taken away. Fake, he says. There's also been an enormous amount of speculation in the past 2.5 years about collusion, and even worse, there has been a reckoning in the past week about the media's coverage of these issues. And yet, we're still kind of in the dark. I mean, let's remember that headline right there. The Mueller report is more than 300 pages long, and so far we've only seen 101 words.
What was the trajectory of how this went wrong?
Yeah, the headline was so sensational and so disturbing. It first came out on TMZ, not only that Smollett said he'd been attacked, but that the attackers said this is MAGA country. Well, obviously, Chicago at 2 in the morning is not MAGA country, so it didn't make sense in the first place. Lots of parts of the story didn't make sense, but the activists, actors, Hollywood celebrities, friends of Smollett, Democratic presidential candidates, they all wanted to sound like they were doing the right thing, saying the right thing, standing up for a victim. There was a rush to judgment. I think it was mostly in the celebrity press and amongst activists and among Twitter people. I think it was really careful reporting by news organizations. But it all gets lumped in together at the end of the day. It all gets lumped together into the minds of these people who now say, what went wrong here? And obviously, at the end of the day, what went wrong is that he may have made it up, and ultimately, that's his responsibility. So, grift. Grift. It is one of the top words of this political moment. Liberals, and actually a fair number of conservatives, are accusing the president and pro-Trump media celebs of being grifters, of selling stuff and exploiting people. And these critics say that this behavior was on full display at the Conservative Political Action Committee conference, CPAC, this week. So I want to unpack what this means. Here to discuss it is Bill Kristol, Director of Defending Democracy Together, New York Magazine's Washington correspondent Olivia Nuzzi, and CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy, who's fresh back from CPAC. Oliver, grifting, this idea of grifting. What is it? What does it mean? Why is it coming up so often these days?
Well, it's basically this idea of exploiting gullible people to sell something, to raise your brand awareness. And I think it's coming up because, well, look, Brian, CPAC has always been a representation of where the Republican Party is, where it's going, and I'm not sure it was ever this place for intellectual discourse, as some people would say, but it has in recent years become more like Trump. It's a celebration of Trump, and so you see a lot of grifters, people throwing red meat rhetoric out at crowds to raise their brand. Guys like Charlie Kirk, Diamond and Silk, Michelle Malkin. Those are the people there, and they are selling books often at CPAC. They're trying to
Every night in prime time, Democrats are dehumanized. They are attacked relentlessly by Fox News primetime hosts. It was always hard for me to imagine a Democrat primary debate taking place in those hours when figures like Nancy Pelosi and now Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are constantly demonized and attacked. So the Democrats are now making that official and saying, we'll have nothing to do with Fox in this primary season. I don't know if it's a good thing that star power and TV savvy is required for the job, but I think it is. And by the way, I think President Obama also had a lot of TV star power, and that helped him pre-Trump. But Trump is more evident of this. And looking ahead to 2020, one reason why I'm taking you seriously as a contender is because of your presence on cable news. A lot of what Fox does in prime time is resentment television, making you resent the liberals and others who are trying to hurt you. That's the message from Fox. I think all of this matters because it's about decency and standards. It's about the corrosive, ugly, nasty behavior that sometimes happens on cable news or off cable news involving some of these hosts. The H word comes to mind, hypocrisy. There's a lot of hypocrisy here in the past week from folks who are saying the media should apologize to Trump. There was a lot of reason here to be suspicious, and journalists' job are to ask those questions, to be suspicious. A lot of those folks on Fox who are attacking mainstream media right now, they're saying that this is a conspiracy theory. Journalists should be reflective. This is a great moment to be reflective about the past 2 years. Pay attention to the big lies. I know some folks are exhausted by the daily deceptions, the small lies from Trump world. But Trump and his allies are telling big lies. Right now, the most popular one is no obstruction. No obstruction at all. The attempts to obstruct are screaming off the page. So what's the role of the press in this broken environment? In part, our role is to keep collecting facts, all of the facts, so that citizens can make up their own minds. But I think it's also our role to stand up for decency and morality, especially if others won't. Journalists, after all, work with a code of ethics. We have and we try to enforce standards, and when we fall down on those standards, we try to learn from those mistakes. And journalists can help lead the way by talking about morality and ethics. Look, I know that I'm a convenient hate object for right-wing media. I recognize that, and I usually just blow it off. But I think there was something important throughout this conversation that I want to emphasize. There was certainly evidence of a willingness to collude. I think there's a lot of analysts like Jeffrey Toobin would say, yeah, there was clearly some collusion. It's a matter of how much collusion there was. There's a lot we don't know about the social media efforts and about the attempts to spread fake news by Russian bots and whether Trump may be involved. But yeah, this is the issue, right? There's two different narratives right now about what happened. It's an awards dinner, a fundraiser. In the past, presidents have always shown up, even if they were angry with the press at any given time. Here's what the Correspondents Association says. They said basically they don't mind either way. It's going to be about celebrating journalists. It's all about celebrating the First Amendment, and the show will go on. There's their statement about this weekend's dinner. But look, it's another example of what we're seeing. This administration's attack against the media. It takes many forms. One form is the president having a rally this Saturday instead of attending the dinner. And I do think it matters mostly because of what it means about these tensions continuing to escalate. A big move by Facebook, banning several accounts. And now there's new blowback from the commander-in-chief. President Trump's furious reaction to Facebook's action showcases that he is, I'm sorry to say, the InfoWars president. He is promoting the same alternative universe as InfoWars and sharing videos from repugnant characters. Now, InfoWars, of course, is that website led by rageaholic Alex Jones. None of this is journalism. These memes, these smears, this crap has no relationship to journalism. But journalists have to grapple with this misinformation muck. We saw this at the White House Social Media Summit. That wasn't. Did you hear about this a few days ago? It was a clear stunt by the president. He was ridiculing reporters while inviting internet trolls and far-right Twitter personalities, fringe radio hosts to the White House. In some ways, maybe a campaign rally for 2020. It was tempting to say we should just ignore this event and call it a stunt and move on, but something important was happening. Trump was legitimizing provocateurs and, in some cases, extremists who deliberately spread misinformation. It felt to me like he was preparing his 2020 meme corpse. You know, the folks that make those visual images that spread across Facebook and go viral. Everybody makes spelling mistakes. All right, everybody. I do. Everybody does. But on Twitter, Donald Trump makes a lot more of them than most people. Just this week, he misspelled Republican and unfair. But those are hardly the worst examples. We have seen countless absurd spellings from the commander-in-chief. He has called showbiz shoebiz. There's hamburgers. There's the smoking gun. There's a lot of these. Even misspelling his wife Melania's name. It's actually not that funny. I know English teachers are horrified by the president's poor form. Lots of other people are embarrassed by it too. But I've never seen anyone do a comprehensive study of his spelling errors or look at what they mean. So that's where FactBase comes in. FactBase is this excellent website that has every single word the president says. Some other politicians as well. It looks at all of Trump tweets, even the deleted ones, for this database of typos and other screw-ups. So we gave the president the full benefit of the doubt. These researchers only counted true misspellings, homophone swaps, and incorrect multi-word phrases. So, here's what the researchers found. On average, Trump makes a spelling error at least 1 out of every 5 days. And since taking office, he's made at least 188 of them total. More than 188 spelling errors on Twitter. Here's Trump's numbers up against Obama's, just to get it into perspective here, because, again, everybody makes mistakes. Trump started tweeting in 2009, Obama started tweeting in 2012. If you compare their errors since joining Twitter, Trump has made 358 of those spelling mistakes, those errors. Barack Obama, 4. The word cult has been popping up more and more. Thinking back 2 weeks ago on this program, Anthony Scaramucci talked about his claim that Trump supporters are in a cult. Just last week, Dan Rather said he thinks support for Trump is increasingly cultish. And this weekend in the Washington Post, Trump critic and Republican strategist John Weaver said the GOP is not a party anymore in the traditional sense. It is a cult. None of them are mental health experts. Stephen Hassan is. He's out with a brand new book called The Cult of Trump. He has first-hand experience escaping the Unification Church back in the 70s, and he's decided to write this book because he believes there's something seriously wrong in our politics.
If you want to say one thing to Mark Dice, what would it be?
I don't know Mark Dice.
So you don't know who Mark Dice is?
I didn't say that. I said I don't know Mark Dice personally.
If you had to say one thing to him, what would it be?
So, again, very clever stunt. I love the game. I think you're very good at the game. So I respect the player. I also respect his funny videos. I've watched a couple of them. I'm sure he'll dub this one also. It's funny. It's not journalism. I don't care much about it, but it's funny.
Now, Brian, you could have stopped any more of these from being created for the next year. All you had to do was accept my offer and bet me that your book would do better than mine on Amazon's bestseller list. As I'm sure you heard, the liberal media industrial complex made it up to number 2 on Amazon's bestseller list of all books. And I'd still be willing to bet that your new book, whenever it comes out, won't even make it into the top 20. I honestly highly doubt that it'll even make it into the top 100. So this means that next year, there are going to be more Little Brian parodies. But until then, it's been a great year laughing at you, and to my loyal fans who have laughed along with me, I do have a serious side, which I hope you guys will check out. If you haven't gotten it yet, head on over to Amazon and get my new book, The Liberal Media Industrial Complex, in paperback. It's not available in stores because I self-published it. And even if you've been watching every one of my videos and are a big news junkie and been following this stuff for some time, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of stuff in there that you need to know. Literally nobody has put together a book like this detailing the extent of the censorship on social media and the power that it has over the national narrative, especially with the 2020 election coming up. So head on over to Amazon.com, order it in paperback, or download the ebook onto your tablet or your e-reading device.